Salan, Karibu, Benvido, Bienvenue. Welcome to the special show we're bringing you from the AAU TV on African Union Day. And I believe that it feels so good to be an African wherever you are. East Africa, North Africa, West Africa, even South Africa. We're all Africans, and on 25th of May is a day for us to reflect on Africa's trajectory, our achievements, our pitfalls, our downfalls, and all together we want to chart a good course forward. And that is why I'm so glad to behold you all today on this program. And I also want to do a quick acknowledgement for you joining us program today. A special one to the emeritus professor himself, Professor Paul Banya. I salute you, sir, for joining us today, the Grand Sage of Academia in Africa. We're glad that you spent time with us today. We look forward to spend time with you and also share a lot on today's program. Allow me to just take you through a brief rundown of what today we'll have for you. Today's program will bring to you special features with a special documentary on Africa's trajectory, on our great heroes. We'll also bring you great music, indigenous music in Africa, for you to also experience the richness of our culture, and some interviews as well, all reflecting on the theme for the African Union on accelerating the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. Without mincing words, I will have to just do the honors by calling for the special anthem of the AAU. Then it will precede the AU anthem. So just enjoy the anthem.
Let us all unite and celebrate together the victories won for our liberation. Let us dedicate ourselves to rise together to defend our liberty and unity. All sons and daughters of Africa, flesh of the sun and flesh of the sky, let us make Africa a tree of life. Let us all unite and sing together to uphold the bonds that frame our destiny. Let us dedicate ourselves to fight together for lasting peace and justice on earth. All sons and daughters of Africa, flesh of the sun and flesh of the sky, let us make Africa the tree of life. Let us all unite and join together to give the best we have to Africa, the cradle of mankind and font of culture, our pride and hope at break of dawn. All sons and daughters of Africa, flesh of the sun and flesh of the sky, let us make Africa the tree of life.
And that was the beautiful one from the African Union that's telling us all to shine. We have light in us as Africans, so we have to let it shine so wide. And the next anthem is that of the Association of African Universities, where this program is coming from. So let's all exercise reverence and also take the AAU anthem.
Shining through the African continent, AAU, voice of higher education, revitalizing higher education in Africa. Human resources. we facilitate teaching and learning in all disciplines and cultures, transforming Africa's education. AAU, the hub of excellence, shaping Africa's educational thoughts. AAU, swing our talents, web of motion, amazing grace and promoting innovation, upholding quality, equity, and standards, transforming Africa's education. We espouse with virtues and scholarship, we research with joy, dignity and truth, we facilitate teaching and learning in all disciplines and cultures, transforming Africa's education. AAU, the pillar of higher learning, spearheading Africa's development. AAU, one of friendship, noble fellows, pushing partnership for higher education. Africa's intellectual advancement are focused to achieve African liberals. We espouse with virtues and scholarship, we research with joy, dignity and truth, we facilitate teaching and learning in all disciplines and cultures, transforming Africa's education.
Welcome back, and if you just joined in, it is the AAU TV African Union Day celebration as we reflect on the theme accelerating the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. You know, every year the African Union comes up with a special theme for the entire year, and this year we're looking at AfTA, one of the very most promising policies ever to also unite the African continent. But today also we also look at reflecting on Africa's journey. We also have a special documentary that gives you a special trajectory of the contribution of heroes like His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie. What was his contribution towards African unity? What was his approach towards African unity? And also Osajefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who hailed from Ghana. What was also his unique contribution and approach towards African unity? And finally is that of Nelson Mandela, also South Africa. What was his special contribution towards Africa's unity? And after that, we also consider an interview as well with some key stakeholders on accelerating the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area, fixing the errors or fixing the missing pieces. You would agree with me that there are some gaps and loopholes that we need to cover to have a solid and robust policy that would drive the continent. We all know that AfTA is promising, looking at bringing us together for a single market, over 1.3 billion of revenue to be generated. However, there ought to be some alignment, and we'll look at all that. So thank you for your time, and I wouldn't want to miss words. We'll go straight into the next item, and the next item right now is to introduce our special guest who will give us special remarks in the person of the Secretary General of the AAU, Professor Olusola Oyewole. And to do that for us is the Executive Secretary of the Secretary General for the AAU in the person of Ms. Josiane Tolusasi. Josiane, if you are with us online, kindly join in and then introduce the SG for us.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Josiane Tolusasi, and then I am to introduce Professor Olusola Oyewole, the Secretary General of AAU. He was the Vice Chancellor of the university from May 2012 to 36 years experience working in the African higher education space and has over 100 scholarship publications. He has served as a senior expert, quality assurance, mobility and scholarship, advancement of human resources, science and technology of the African Union Commission in Ethiopia, Addis Ababa from 2009 to 2010. Prior to coming over to the African Union Commission, Professor Olusola Oyewole was the coordinator of the British government-sponsored project on the mobilization of regional initiatives for the revitalization of higher education in Africa at the Association of African University, AAU, Accra, Ghana, from 2007 to 2009. His assignments involved promotion of management, continental research, networking, and research programs for development. He has also served as the project officer of the World Bank project on quality assurance for African higher education systems at the Association of African Universities for the period of 2006 and 2009. Professor Olusola Oyewole has worked in national, regional, and continental organizations and has experience in coordinating multinational research and development programs. He has track record and experience in international and intergovernmental relations, advocacy, and lobbying for research and research components of higher education in Africa. His areas of focus include quality assurance, leadership and management in Africa higher education systems, research systems. At the African Union, Prof. Olusola Oyewole was charged with the coordination of Mwalimu Nyerere scheme, which programs include the African Quality Ratings Equivalent Mobility Scheme with the Mwalimu Nyerere grant and the African European Union ACP. He is currently a member of the advisory group of the OECD Program and Innovation Higher Education and Research for Development and the Tuning Africa Quality Assurance Program. He is currently the sub-cluster coordinator of African Union Commission Continental Education Strategy for Education CESA on research and studies. Please let us welcome Most Excellency Professor Olusola Oyewole. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Josiane, for the introduction. Appreciate it.
Fellow Africans and all stakeholders of higher education in Africa and all friends of Africa celebrate the progress and the potentials of our remarkable continent. This year, we come together under the theme of accelerating the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area, a significant milestone in our collective journey towards economic integration and growth. Ladies and gentlemen, as we embark on this transformative path, it is important to acknowledge the crucial role played by the African higher education system and institutions. These institutions serve as the nurturing ground for intellectual curiosity, innovative thinking, and the development of critical skills. They play a vital role in shaping the minds of future leaders, future entrepreneurs, and change makers who will drive the success of the African Continental Free Trade Area. Let us invest in our higher education institutions. Let us promote research in these institutions, promote collaboration and knowledge exchange to empower our youths and unlock their full potentials. Ladies and gentlemen, in today's interconnected world, social media has emerged as a powerful tool that transcends borders, connecting people and ideas. It presents an incredible opportunity for us to amplify our voices, showcase our cultural richnesses, and promote our entrepreneurial endeavors. Let us leverage social media platforms to raise awareness about the African Continental Free Trade Area, share success stories, and foster collaboration. Together, we can build a vibrant digital community that propels our continents towards economic prosperity and unity. Moreover, the training of future business leaders holds immense significance in realizing the vision of the African Continental Free Trade Area. We must equip our young entrepreneurs with the necessary skills, knowledge, and resources to navigate the complexities of international trade, seize opportunities, and overcome challenges. I believe that through targeted training programs, mentorship initiatives, and business incubators, including those established in university campuses, we can nurture a new generation of visionary leaders who will drive sustainable economic growth and create job opportunities for our people. On this occasion of African Union's Day in 2023, let us reaffirm our commitment to the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. Together, we can unlock the immense potentials of our continent, foster economic integration, and improve the livelihoods of our people. May this day inspire us to work hand in hand, embracing the power of African higher education, harnessing the potentials of social media, and investing in the training of future business leaders. I wish every one of us a joyful African Union's Day. God bless you.
That was an energy-filled speech right there by the Secretary General for the Association of African Universities. And up next will be a youth-focused session to all the youth in-house, young people, asking yourselves, what role have you got to play in implementing the African Continental Free Trade Area? So now you'll be having to experience the youth voice about what role they've got to play, how entrepreneurial, how energetic, how enthusiastic they can be in bringing up ideas to run or to take after to the next level. And this will be led by my colleague, Miss Isabella Cheta Henakwa, the discussion up next. But before that, enjoy just one music interlude. Be right back with the discussion on after the role of the youth in implementing it. Stay with us. Be right back.
Africa,
You're welcome to the African Union Day 2023 commemoration show brought to you by the Association of African Universities. Today we are gathered here celebrating Africa, and this year's theme for the African Union Day focuses on a significant policy that holds great potential for the development of African continent. And in this session, we are going to look at the role of youth or the African youth in implementing this groundbreaking initiative. My name is Isabella Teta Henakwa, the host for the session, and with me here Mr. Obed Owusu Asiedu. He is the acting president of Ghana United Nations Student and Youth Association, that is GUNSA, at the UG chapter. And also we have Mr. Hayford Danso, the ambassador of the African Academic Heritage Fair 2022. Without further delay, we are going to start with the discussion. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
You're welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Right. So before we start, I would like you to introduce yourself, more about what you do, and then maybe where you're schooling. Yeah. Starting from you, Hayford.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Okay, so I'm Hayford Danso, level 20 student of University of Ghana and offering political science. I was the winner of the African Union quiz, and also the ambassador for AAU TV.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
And you, Obed?
Thank you very much. I am Obed Owusu Asiedu, a second-year student at the University of Ghana, reading political science and geography. So I am the acting president of the Ghana United Nations Student and Youth Association, University of Ghana chapter, GUNSA UG chapter, and a youth member of parliament for my constituency, of the Just South constituency, and a former delegate of Kenya, Ghana International Model United Nations, June 2023.
Great. You're welcome once again.
Thank you very much.
Now, let's start with the basic. Over the past few years, we've heard about the AFTA policy, which aims to establish a unified market for goods and services within Africa, and also to promote sustainable economic growth for the continent. Hayford, I'd like you to elaborate more on the significance of this AFTA policy.
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity. I think this agenda is very, very important in African society, because this lucrative agenda will be able to enhance a lot of lucrative opportunities for the African youth. And one thing that is very, very important is that it will be able to help create jobs. Since the last time I checked about it, they said that it will be able to create almost like 30 million jobs for the African youth. And I think it's very, very important that we talk about this important.
And you, Obed?
Thank you very much. So the major significance of the AFTA in promoting the intra-African trade, economic growth and development is that one, diversification and industrialization. So when the AFTA is finally implemented, it will diversify the countries in Africa. I mean the countries. It will diversify their economies from one that is exporting major traditional commodities to one that's exporting value added commodities.
Yeah.
So, and the industrialization too, since it seeks to empower or seek for the growth of value added goods, it will create manufacturing industries. So you can't just export rice just like that. You can't just export cocoa bean just like that. You can't just export, let's say, flour just like that. You have to add value to it. And with that, it will also create jobs, as my brother said. It will create jobs in that sector. It will the production will establish. Sure.
Now let's talk about considering some challenges that African youth faces, particularly when it comes to unemployment. In your perspective, how do you think, or what is the potential of the AFTA policy in boosting job creation or creating opportunities for African youth?
Oh, okay. So thank you very much once again. You see, the potential of AFTA in addressing the challenges of the youth is that it will, by stimulating entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship in this sense will help the youth to be job creators instead of job seekers. And it will all help the youth to leverage the trade agreement, then establish businesses that will seek for the expansion of the intra-African trade, the market. So I think stimulating entrepreneurship will do, and I think it's a great sample.
And do you have something to say in it?
Yeah, just as he was saying, yes, that's
okay.
Yes,
okay, and now, since we've got to know the opportunities that after, what role or how can the youth, play a role in implementing it in the continent?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. And looking at Africa, I think the youth has about 70% of the population of Africa.
Yeah.
And with this agenda, I think it will be very, very impossible for us not to involve the youth in this agenda. That's why the youth can actively take part by leading youth-led initiatives such as agriculture, technology, and all this. And this we can actively engage these by endorsing the youth to start these initiatives, because there's a sector in the AFTA that will be able to support the youth in these initiatives. Yeah.
Okay. Do you think the youth are prepared? Because before you initiate or before you implement something, you need to have some skills, you need to have some knowledge. Do you think we are prepared to be implementing the AFTA policy?
As it stands now, I wouldn't say we are yet prepared.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
That's why we need to educate the youth, communication skills, and yeah.
And do you think we are prepared? Looking at the digital era, do you think we are prepared to implement AFTA policy?
Okay, so day in, day out, new things come.
Yeah.
So we have to, we are already prepared, but we have to put more effort. So we have to put more effort in our business management and trade skills. We have to enlighten the youth in all these factors: trade and business management skills and entrepreneurship skills. And yeah, we have to let them know all these things, because you can't just go into this trading aspect of this our economy, then you just being like that. You have to at least get something that it will facilitate your production and your work in this sector.
Okay.
Sure.
Now, being the acting president for GUNSA, you are all saying we have to let them know this. We need to educate them. As with your position, how are you going to educate the African youth to maybe to partake in agriculture? Because majority of them believe that when I enter into agri, it's kind of a punishment, or when I enter into entrepreneurship, maybe I'm a school dropout or something. How are you going to lead the advocacy of the African youth participating in entrepreneurship, participating in agriculture, and so on?
So the first thing is advocacy and awareness. Just let them know that these are the opportunities AFTA is presenting to the youth, and we have a greater share of it. So if we could just indulge ourselves into these aspects of our sectors, it will really help. So by so doing, you will see that, and the after also supports agri-businesses, because in one way or the other, it's more of a manufacturing business, and it will also help. So the youth, if you tell the youth that you should just do this, do that, and we are all seeking to eliminate poverty and unemployment, and if they could get something beneficial from it, why not? They will definitely indulge themselves into it.
And the ambassador for AAHF 2022,
yes,
how are you going to advocate for that?
Okay, so taking the agriculture sector, I think what you should do is that you should let the youth know the importance of being a farmer. Yes, because a lot of us have a lot of mindset that if you like farming doesn't have a lot of profit and all that. So if you educate them, make them aware that once we engage in this, we will not only be helping ourselves, but we will be helping the country as a whole. Yes, it will help boost the youth interest in this sector.
We'll be going for a quick break, but before that, looking at the status of the AFTA policy or implementing that initiative, do you think the authorities or the officials of this policy engage this African youth? Do you think they engage them in implementing it?
Like, have they yet engaged them?
Have you heard of anything going on that you made mention of the supporting entrepreneurship programs?
Sure.
Aside that, have you heard of anything? Maybe this person has won this, or this person has taken this amount of money to boost this, or have you heard?
Of course.
Yeah.
You see, lately the government introduced something called YouStart, and it all seeks to empower SMEs, the small and medium-sized enterprises, and all these are youth-led businesses. So by so doing, they are helping the implementation of the AFTA. Besides, we want to widespread the capacity of trade. So that is one fact. That's one point. And lately too, I heard one MP for Medina, Honorable Xavier Susu. He also spoke at one women's conference, and he made mention of this AFTA, and even made contributions that the youth has a significant role to play. And if you want to ensure the implementation of the AFTA, then the youth has to be at the forefront. Then seek that their warfare, their voices are heard, and all these account to educating them, letting them know about what the AFTA presents to them.
Great. Sure. That is impressive. We'll go for a quick break, we'll come back, we'll continue. So this is the African Union Day commemoration show brought to you by the Association of African Universities. We'll go for a quick break, when we come back, we'll look at some challenges and also what the government institutions can do to support African youth in implementing the AFTA policy. Stay tuned.
Only makhanda ubisiluphelile uphele abathotine zipipisi yakhathaza uphele lebuhlungu madoda lendaba yase-Afrika uphele iyo siyelele mama uphele iyo.
You're welcome back from the break. This is the African Union Day commemoration show, and we are here celebrating Africa. And in this session, we are looking at the role of African youth in implementing the AFTA policy. And with me here, Mr. Hefo Danso and also Mr. Obed Owusu Asiedu, all from the University of Ghana. So, Obed, you made mention of how African youth can be engaging in implementing the AFTA policy. Now, of course, there may be some challenges they will be facing. What are some of the potential challenges they will face?
Okay, thank you very much. One of the potential challenges they will face is that, you see, they're not having that digital literacy now. And I think we must involve and ensure that the youth know something about this. Help them know how to trade online, know certain things about digital trading, or like anything about digital that can help implement, that can help facilitate the implementation of the AFTA. I think it will really be of help.
Okay, before Heford, you come in with your challenges. After the session, we'll be taking some comments and questions from our participants joining us via Zoom. So Heford, what do you foresee as a challenge to African youth engaging in the implementation of the AFTA policy? Okay,
I will take it from the Ghana's perspective.
Okay.
If you come to Ghana, you see the political fractions, the Party A, Party B, they all have different political views. So for the successful implementation of this policy, it will be very, very hard, to be honest. The part, and some also will be looking at the positive part, which will delay. It will delay. So for us to be able to make sure that this agenda has been successfully implemented, we have to make sure that we all just look at the positive side, because this is not just any ordinary agenda, it's a good agenda that will help us all.
How can the educational institutions and also governmental institutions help to support African youth? We are ready to join, we are ready to engage and also implement the policy. How can these people help us?
Yes, just as I was saying, they should educate, like they should tell the youth what this is all about, what the AFTA is about, what they can do to partake in this agenda. Yeah, and they should make them aware that this is like a lifetime for all of our Africans.
Great. And you, Obed?
Sure, thank you very much. So, educational institutions needs to enhance and enrich their education for the youth.
The curriculum?
Their curriculum in this sector for the youth. So another thing is that, you see, we have to also give the youth training on entrepreneurship. Okay. And I recommend, let me take this platform to just give a shout out to Achimangwa Beja Youth Network.
Okay.
Just last month, they held a program and they gave entrepreneurship training to the youth in that constituency. Okay. So all these are things that could help implement the AFTA. And vocational institutions and other educational institutions, governments or any other body have to enrich their capacity so that they can just train us for the future, because the future is manufacturing and digitalization.
And the governmental institutions, aside the educational institution, how can governmental institutions also help?
Have programs, create awareness. Awareness is very essential. Campaigns targeted at information for the youth to widen their horizon about this whole AFTA, because I'm sure that probably there is one or two people who doesn't even know about the AFTA. They haven't heard of it before.
Yeah,
so we are the change we need to see. So you should just make steps, then see the way forward.
Right. Now, before we wrap up, to your last words, Africans, to your colleagues out there, say something maybe to encourage them so they are prepared to join the implementation of the AFTA policy.
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity. Hello everyone. I think this is a wonderful opportunity for us. There is no future for us. The future is the present is the future. and I think we should equip ourselves with the basic skills, the things we need to be able to take part in this initiative. We shouldn't wait for us that there's a future for us. This is the future. This is the future. So please get up from your bed, get up from WhatsApp. Let's take part.
Great.
Let's go get it.
Yeah. And you, Obed?
Sure. Thank you very much. Before I start with my final words, I just want the youth out there to know that, one, they should support their friends' businesses by lifting others.
Okay.
So support my business, I will support yours. You just can't get out there and implement something or do something. You need support, definitely. Then two, the youth should take courses, because I know YALDA, Youth Alliance for Leadership and Development in Africa. They are having these short courses and after short courses too, that can help. So we should just take these courses too to help boost ourselves, then know that after is there for us, the youth. And my final message is that tomorrow begins today. So we should just stand up, then fight for what is ours, because the youth can't be silent on issues concerning our future. After it's our future, we shouldn't just sit. We should wake up and do something that can help implement this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we'll take some comments and questions from our participants joining us online via Zoom. If you have any comment, you can post it on the comment section so we read it out, or any other question. You can also raise your hand so we call you and then you submit your comment or question. Is there anyone online who wants to contribute to this discussion? All right, we'll go for a quick break and then we'll come back with the comments from our online participants. welcome back from the break. It seems we are having some technical challenges, so you cannot, unmute yourself to voice out your comments or your questions. But then you can as well type it in the comment section, so we read it out. I'll take some few comments we have online. This is from Namara Rose. She's wishing us a happy African Union Day, and she's from the Uganda Management Institute. We also have from Ivan Wambet. He's also wishing us a happy 60th African Union Day from Family Federation, that's the Uganda chapter. And we'll be saying good day everyone. Warm greetings from Macheliso Intoy, a student at both university. And also we have from Charles William Zulu, sorry. He's saying hi everyone, warm spiritual, original and African greetings to you from Zambia. Okay, so this from Charles William. Okay, he is an education advisor. Charles, okay, let me read it again. Charles William Zulu is an education advisor content. Okay, learning and innovation working with VVOB Education for Development Zambia. We are supporting the Ministry of Education in the teaching at the right level methodology, well known as Catch Up in Zambia. The intervention targets learners who are in grade 3 to 5 who are struggling to read, write, and numerate. That is literacy and numeracy. As we celebrate African Freedom Day, we are reflecting on the role of the youth in AFTA in line with literacy and numeracy. Illiterate youth cannot contribute more productive and meaningfully in entrepreneurship because the leaders are lining their own pockets with corruptedly and ill-gotten riches. Happy African Day. That is from Nelson Zingeni. That is also impressive. I think our time is up. We're going to end here. Keep posting your comments, and then that will be read out in the next session. My name is Isabella Teta Hinakwa, and in this session we discussed the role of African youth in implementing the AFTA policy, and with me here was Mr. Hayford Dansu, and also Mr. Obed Owusu Asiedu. My message to us all is it is about time for us to come together to unleash the potential of African future leaders, that is the African youth, and also to pave way for an inclusive continent. Please stay tuned for more educative and also exciting sessions and activities for this show.
The land is good, the land is fine. Gold we have, diamonds we mine. Yet we fight, we cover it all in blood. Tell me why we wallow in the mud. Africa, Africa, we cry for peace. Africa. The land is good, the land is fine. Gold we have, diamonds we mine. Yet we fight, we cover it all in blood. Tell me why we wallow in the mud. Africa, 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 yeah. Mama Africa, we cry for peace. Africa, 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 yeah. Mama Africa, we cry for peace. Africa. Nisambu katigi Africa, 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 yeah. Mama Africa, we cry for peace. Africa, 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 yeah. Mama Africa, we cry for peace. Africa. Nisambuka tigi kayora, nisambuka tigi kayora, nisambuka tigi kayora, nisambuka tigi kayora. Tell me why you fight. Tell me why we fight. Tell me why you fight. Tell me why we fight.
Africa unite, 'cause we're moving right out of Babylon, and we're going to our father's land. Yeah. How good and how pleasant it would be before God and man, yeah, to see the unification of all Africans, yeah. Has it been said already? Let it be done, yeah. We are the children of the Rastaman. We are the children of the Ayaman. Africa unite, 'cause the children wanna come home, yeah, yeah. Africa unite, 'cause we're moving right out of Babylon, and we're grooving to our father's land. Yeah. How good and how pleasant it would be before God and man to see the unification of all Rastaman. Yeah. Has it been said already? Let it be done. I tell you who we are under the sun. We are the children of the Rastaman. We are the children of the Ayaman. So Africa unite, Africa unite, yeah. Unite for the benefit of your people. Unite for it's later than they think. Unite for the benefit of your children. Unite for it's later than they think. Africa, await its creators. Africa, awaiting it.
Yo, welcome back to the AAU TV AU Day Commemoration Show, especially for you to celebrate Africa's achievements and journey from 1963 to now. And you know, the celebration train is running on the rails, and we're just moving on and on. And you saw what happened not long ago about the role of the youth in implementing AFTA, and your comments were all avid. I would also want to take the chance to mention a couple of comments that came in. We have this one from Adebayo Gokoya saying, "Happy African Union Day from all of us at Global Sustainable Youth Forum." And this from Daniel Asilika. And Daniel says, "Hi everyone, greetings from Dr. Alu from the Science and Technology Cluster, University of KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa." We also have this from Jean Paul Uzabariko. who says, "It is my great pleasure to thank AAU and all stakeholders to organize this wonderful African Union Day. Together we can." And you also can also send in your comments as well, how you feel. Share your joy, share your delights for African Union Day. What have you got to say to inspire us, to direct us, to also draw attention to Africa's potential and strength? Without mincing words, let me just share this one from our own, and have total autonomy to run its own economy and its unity. But before that, what role have we got to play? The next thing we're going to see is a special documentary from the AAU TV telling you the various contributions of our leaders, our past leaders, the likes of His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie, Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, and Nelson Mandela. The roles they played, unique roles, all to ensure that African unity was safeguarded. Today, are we looking at African unity or not? Are their toils materializing, or their toils were in vain? This documentary is for you to judge, for you to appreciate, and for you to celebrate how far we've come as a people on one word: hope. Up next is a special documentary from the AAU TV on Africa's history of hope for African unity. Enjoy.
Tell me why we wallow in the mud. Africa, Africa, Africa.
In May 1963, 32 heads of independent African states met in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, to sign the charter creating Africa's first post-independence continental institution, the Organization of African Unity, OAU. An historic day for Africa and all Africans. To stand today on the stage of world affairs before the audience of the world's opinion. To have come together to assert collective roles in the direction of the world's affairs and to discharge collective duties to the great continent. Africa is today at mid-course in transition from the Africa of yesterday to the Africa of tomorrow. Even as we stand here, we will not wait. We must act to shape and mold the future and leave our imprint on events as they slip past into history. The OAU represents a Pan-African vision for an Africa that is united, free, and able to control its destiny, and the Charter of the OAU recognizes that freedom, equality, justice, and dignity are the basic objectives of achieving the legitimate hopes of Africans and promotes cooperation between African countries to respond to the wish of Africans for brotherhood and unity. The guiding philosophy was that of Pan-Africanism, which centered on African socialism and promoted African unity, the communal characteristic and practices of African communities, and a drive to embrace Africa's culture and common heritage. The main objectives of the OAU were to rid the continent of the remaining vestiges of colonization and apartheid, to promote unity and solidarity among African countries, to coordinate and intensify cooperation for development, to safeguard the sovereignty and territorial integrity of member states, and to promote international cooperation. The OAU Charter spelled out the purpose of the organization, namely, to promote the unity and solidarity of the African states, to coordinate and intensify their cooperation and efforts to achieve a better life for the people of Africa, to defend their sovereignty, their territorial integrity and independence, to eradicate all forms of colonialism from Africa, and to promote international cooperation, having due regard to the Charter of the United Nations and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
Africa.
Ghana, we now have freedom. Ghana, land of freedom, toils of the brave and the sweat of their labor.
On the other hand of Africa's storyboard was the Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who was born in 1909 in Nkrofo, Gold Coast, now Ghana. Nkrumah was a revolutionary thinker, a proponent of African unity, and a staunch anti-colonialist. He studied in the United States and the United Kingdom and was deeply influenced by the ideas of socialism and communism. His experiences shaped his ideology and fueled his commitment to liberating Africa from the shackles of colonialism. In 1947, he returned to Ghana and became actively involved in the country's independence movement. In 1957, Ghana became the first sub-Saharan African country to gain independence from European colonial rule. Nkrumah was elected as the first president of Ghana.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom.
At long last, the battle has ended. And thus, Ghana, your beloved country, is free forever.
Nkrumah understood that political independence alone was not enough for Africa's progress. He recognized the need for economic cooperation, bringing African nations together, share their knowledge, and collectively confront any challenges they faced. Nkrumah began to work towards his dream of a United States of Africa, a singular continental government that will unite the diverse nations of Africa and harness collective strength.
Oh, freedom.
Forward then. To independence.
Oh, freedom.
To independence now. Tomorrow.
Oh, freedom.
The United States of Africa.
Driven by his conviction, Dr. Nkrumah traveled across the continent, campaigning for the realization of a United States of Africa. He hosted and attended several conferences, including the All-African People's Conference in 1958 and the First Conference of Independent African States in 1960, where he advocated for African unity. In his speech, Dr. Nkrumah expressed that the resources are there. It is for us to marshal them in the active service of our people. Unless we do this by our concerted efforts within the framework of our combined planning.
Which single African state could protect itself against an imperialist aggressor? And how much more difficult this will be when some states are allowing the imperialists to maintain bases on their territories. I have already referred to the military forces which South Africa is raising and the danger it poses for the new African states and the struggle of those still in chains. Only our unity can provide us with anything like adequate protection.
And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my own grave.
We shall not progress at the tempo demanded by today's events and the mood of our people. The symptoms of our troubles will grow, and the troubles themselves become chronic. It will then be too late even for Pan-African unity to secure for us stability and tranquility in our labors for a continent of social justice and material well-being. Unless we establish African unity now, we who are sitting here today shall tomorrow be the victims and martyrs of neocolonialism.
I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave, and go home to Africa unite, 'cause we're moving right out of Babylon, and we're going to our father's land.
Haile Selassie, original Tafari Mokenen, born on July 23, 1892, near Hara in Ethiopia and died in August 27, 1975. As Emperor of Ethiopia, he sought to modernize his country and steer it into mainstream of African politics. He brought Ethiopia into the League of Nations, and the UN made Addis Ababa the center of the Organization of African Unity, now the African Union. Through most of his reign, he remained popular among the majority Christian population. Haile Selassie was regarded as the Messiah of the African race by the Rastafarian movement. The emperor's philosophy of African unity was purely pragmatic. No scheme, however noble and far-seeing it may have seemed, was good if it wasn't going to work. For that reason, he differed with Dr. Nkrumah's thesis that Africa must unite now.
How good and how pleasant it would be before God and man to see the unification of all Rasta.
Selassie believed that the heads of state must move only step by step toward union because tradition cannot be abandoned at once. They would not, he felt, agree to the union now, and disagreeing would delay and possibly frustrate progress toward cooperation and development. He was too astute when addressing the delegates in Addis Ababa to mention what everyone, including himself, knew. Africans would disagree on immediate union because they fear Nkrumah's driving egocentricity might lead to his becoming the first and perhaps permanent president of the United States of Africa. By refraining from offering such a suggestion and by pressing quietly his own view that a little unification was better than none, the emperor won the day, obtaining even Nkrumah's signature to a moderate charter. The Organization of African Unity, like the Organization of American States, is at best a confederation of wholly independent and sovereign states. Real unity may be a long way off, but Africa Hall, at least, has been established as a laboratory for testing it, and the emperor has got the experiment started. In this role, probably no one else in the world could work the way he did. In many ways, he was an anomaly, a stiff, uncompromising, old world figure. He was no glad-hander in the manner of the American politician. On his rounds through Africa, he would never wear tribal costumes to please the natives or the photographers. On May 25, 1963, at the permanent headquarters in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, Haile Selassie, Emperor of Ethiopia, was selected as the first president of the Organization for African Unity, OAU. His acceptance speech encapsulated a lot of aspirations with a special quote saying, "Africa has become an increasingly influential force in the conduct of the world's affairs as combined weight of collective opinion is brought to focus not only on matters which concern this continent exclusively, but on those pressing problems which occupy thoughts of all men everywhere. As we have come to know one another better and grown in mutual trust and confidence, it has been possible for us to coordinate our policies and actions and contribute to the successful settlement of pressing and critical world issues."
Educate yourselves of Africa, to liberate yourself, Africa. Keep your heads up high, no more will we cry.
Another notable figure of Africa's unity is Nelson Mandela, popularly known as Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. Was born into the Madiba clan in the village of Mvezo in the Eastern Cape on 18 July 1918. Rolihlahla Mandela was a South African anti-apartheid activist and politician who served as the first president of South Africa from 1994 to 1999. He was the country's first black head of state and the first elected in a fully representative democratic election.
I am prepared to release Mr. Mandela if he would say that he rejects violence as a means to reach and to achieve political ends.
My father says, I cannot and will not give any undertaking at a time when I and you, the people, are not free. Your freedom and mine cannot be separated. I will return.
Throughout his life, he had fought for the emancipation of Africa, defended the dignity of the African people, and promoted unity among African countries. He was a man who had devoted his lifetime to Africa's development and progress. Nelson Mandela's contribution to peace and reconciliation should never be forgotten. His great spirit will inspire those after him to keep striving for peace. Regrettably, peace remains elusive in many places of today's world. Today, the work of the AU is implemented through several principal decision-making organs: the Assembly of Heads of State and Government, the Executive Council, the Permanent Representatives Committee, Specialized Technical Committees, the Peace and Security Council, and the African Union Commission. The AU structure promotes participation of African citizens and civil society through the Pan-African Parliament and the Economic, Social and Cultural Council, ECOSOC. To ensure the realization of its objectives and the attainment of the Pan-African vision of an integrated, prosperous and peaceful Africa, Agenda 2063 was developed as a strategic framework for Africa's long-term socio-economic and integrative transformation. Agenda 2063 calls for greater collaboration amongst African countries and support for African-led initiatives to ensure the achievement of the aspirations of the African people.
So there we are. I don't know how you feel after watching this very insightful and very revealing documentary about the trajectory of Africa's unity. But all I can say is that for me, I'm beginning to feel a bit teary and lament a little bit about how far we've come. Can you imagine the toils of these four founders, the likes of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, Haile Selassie, Madiba, Nelson Mandela? All these people placed their lives on the line to fight with all they had to ensure that this continent of ours was free from colonial rule or any kind of colonial interference. Today, what do we see? Tell me, what do you see? Are we indeed free from the shackles of this colonialism? I would just want to refer to my colleague Nanes Omasam saying that you can liberate people physically, but it's very difficult for you to touch the minds and liberate them because there may be some mental or emotional shackles. Emancipation hasn't seen its full face in our continent. The legendary Bob Marley said, "Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery," because he knew that that was the only hurdle we had to cross as the African people. Physically, we are not being oppressed, but mentally, we have been bound to where we are. What have we done to show that, yes, indeed, we are independent? Are we not still relying on foreign aids? Are we still not waiting for initiatives coming from Western countries for us to chart a course? How developed are we today? Speak from your heart and testify how free we are as Africans. We are still poverty-stricken. We are still wallowing in pandemics and endemics. Malaria is still #1 disease killing Africans since 1999 to now. We are still relying on foreign aid for medical, for our public health institutions. We are still relying on international institutions to come construct our roads for us. Our development is like a masterpiece be right in front of Westerners. We are just standing in for ourselves. Are we in control of our continent? I can go on and on and on expressing my dismay against how Africa has underperformed in charting its own course. Dr. Kwame Nkrumah had toiled, and I will say, unfortunately, may have toiled in vain, because I'm not seeing his words and his works materializing. Was he misunderstood? Was Haile Selassie misunderstood? Was Nelson Mandela misunderstood? Because today, their toils, their works, their campaigns, their rallies for one Africa, unfortunately, hasn't materialized. And the last of it all, that one last unifying agenda, 2063, in it we have the African Continental Free Trade Area, which is to create one single African market. It looks like we are struggling and still wallowing in ensuring that also works. Oh, how worrisome and loathsome the woes of Africa has been. The rest is for you to judge as an African. Share your comments on what you found about the documentary. Are you seeing progress? Are you seeing Africa unite in the next 20 years? We have got 40 years to see to the fruition of the Agenda 2063. The question is, how well are we doing in ensuring our unity? And that's why I'm going to call in my guest for this segment of the program, where we look at the theme of the African Union with this second aspect, fixing the missing pieces. And I'll be joined by the Executive Director for the After Policy Network in Ghana, Mr. Louis Yao Afo. Sir, are you here with us?
Yes, I am. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Glad to have you here. Sure. I also have with me in the studio Eric Nanajiman. He is a youth activist. Eric, you're welcome to the AAU Day program.
Thank you,
That's splendid. So we have our guests ready, and we're about to just kickstart. But before we start with the main discussion, I want to hear from you, Mr. Lewis. You watched the documentary yourself. I know you made your own notes. How do you feel seeing this retrospective view of what these heroes have done? And how do you feel now? Do you think that their works have materialized, or it's a journey in vain?
Well, first, to start with, they are no more with us.
Yes.
Secondly, the environment, the prevailing era at the time is entirely different from now. And so their immediate or initial steps they took were good. But if they were all alive now, would they have maintained what we are holding them proud for? That is very, very critical. If you take economic environment, what were the resources to population, the ratio? What were the level of opportunities to develop compared to now? Second, at their time, what was the democratic governance environment like? Was it dictatorial, or was it fully democratic? Also faced some challenges because they were faced with the activities of the superpowers at the time. And so most Africans became what they call the non-aligned movements. They were neither to the west or the east. The good news is that we have a generation of people, youth now, who are more generational thinkers, who want to see, who have punched holes in what they didn't see in these leaders who have passed away. Some to have seen certain traits they would like to continue. Unfortunately, some of the good visions that they had, like the one African market, should have been continued aggressively, but decade after decade, we are now seeing the realization of just one level of it, that is the continental free trade. It's not, we are not there yet. We are not there at one African market, on taking steps. Today, we are thinking of one African passport. We are thinking about one African central bank. We are looking at Agenda 2023 as a whole, everything African, everything African. This was what they had in mind. And so we congratulate them, but we need to take work from them generationally and look at the era we are, not to disappoint ourselves. In the next 20 years, 2 decades, with what we are seeing, the era of AI, with the era of artificial intelligence, the era of post-artificial intelligence, the era of pandemic, break here and there, the new crop of leaders coming should not just envisage things, but they must take a pragmatic steps to fulfill those dreams and wait. Our leaders in the past were trying to wait, and it was truncated for some decades. So for me, those will be my initial comment, and I think that we have a new crop of generational leaders ready to meet the era now we are in, good for good.
Great. Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Lewis. And speaking of generational leaders and young leaders, I have with me Eric Nanajiman, who is here in the studio with me. Eric, you being here with me, you had your own spectacle of what happened in the documentary. What have you got to say with your efforts?
Well, Ajiman, I think your intro got me a bit teary as well. Because, I mean, it's been 60 years coming. Yeah. And great documentary there. And I think that this does a lot of knowledge good for my generation, because as those coming up, we need to know where we have come from, where we are, and where we are going. Sure. 60 years down the line, I mean, if you look at our founding fathers, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, for example, on the eve of Ghana's independence, he made a statement that the independence of Ghana is meaningless unless there is linked to the total liberation of the African continent. So he was looking more to the collective, we coming together. But 60 years down the line, what do we see? And an interesting example I will cite is when AAU put out the flyer for this program on Facebook, I came across 2 comments. The 2 were very negative comments against the African Union. Okay. I mean, it's a day for us to celebrate African Union, Africa, our heroes, but it appears there's very little to celebrate, right? One of the comments on your flyer on Facebook was, I mean, literally questioning the existence of the African Union. And if you, I'm sure you can check. Yeah. One asked, there's nothing like the African Union. It's because 60 years, as it has been set in motion, there's very little for us to account for. And I think that it appears we may be disappointing our forefathers, and I think there's really a lot for us to do to reclaim our position back into the world.
Thank you, Eric. And you know, I'm not surprised about this frantic whole aura to this program or the African Union initiatives. Mr. Lewis is quite closer to the African Union in its activities, so I will just throw this one to him. Mr. Lewis, how would you rate the cohesion of AFTA in taking along the African continent? We were seeing AFTA as one encircling initiative that was supposed to bring us close to the African Union, see its effectiveness, and also realize African unity. Do you think AFTA still bears that potential to take us on that trajectory?
One thing that I've realized, we seem to have a policy that always being the reasons of our original policy to read now program problem you see, maybe it was not yet an agreement, it was just what we call the Continental Free Trade Agreement. Now, when it became adopted, it was African Continental Free Trade Area. At the African Union, there was a unit that was taking care of this problem under the Commission of Trade, now the TTMI. Now, when the Secretariat became autonomous, what I was expecting was that those units that initiated, that started, the consultant that started this agreement, were to continue with the phase 2 and phase 3. So when everything is in order, they hand over to the Secretariat. Because the Secretariat, once become fully autonomous, you need to recruit, and the people who are going to recruit need to now also start from scratch. So the implementation strategy right from scratch was problematic. They were supposed to have waited for the unit within the Commission of Trade to complete their work, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and then hand over entirely for the Secretariat to be autonomous. You see, when you do that, you keep track of everything you are doing. Now, all units have been moved to the Secretariat. That is good. But as I'm talking to you, what is the strength of the resource persons there? They have to, and they are still doing recruit. And in any case, the recruitment is still coming from the African Union. Their budget is still controlled from the African Union. So there wouldn't have been any problem if they had waited a bit to allow the unit. So, well, as I said earlier, we have the good policies, but the implementation strategy takes a different direction. Secondly, the presidents and the countries that, or the state parties who committed themselves to the agreement, nobody forced them, nobody coerced them. They were willing to sign this agreement. Now, when it came for them to speed it up, accelerate, that's why I like the team, accelerate it. When it came to the time of accelerating it, then the old fever of Africans came in, lack of political will. Currently, and let us also know that it's not every member of AFTA who is trading, but there's a critical difference between a trading state party and a member. You have not fulfilled all the advantages of becoming an AFTA country. You are only going to be there as a member, but you cannot benefit from the tariff liberalization. And so, you can also imagine having two powerful members like Morocco and Algeria. For the past 15 years, they don't see eye to themselves. They've closed their border. So, as I'm saying, once you were coming out with that policy, you look also at the implementation for that. Let us inculcate security as one of the conditionalities for its implementation. Remember, during the time of our forefathers of Africa, AAU, just when they were dreaming the Pan-African integration, then started so many overthrowing insecurity, instability, politics. Now that AFTA has come to stay, just the last 2 to 3 years, or just the past years, there have been so many insecurity around the West Africa, the Sub-Saharan, coup d'etats here and there, overthrow here and there, war here and there. Why? How can this sustain when we are supposed to do the border free trade movement, free person, and insecurity is in us, but the structures to the implementation needs to be reviewed, needs to be strengthened, needs to be validated through our legislations. By this, I mean that you cannot go and sign that I want things to come through my country, and where are they going to pass? It's not your borders and your port. So if it comes through your port, and then you have not yet put legislations to what you sign, and by that I mean that in the agreement it says that there should be custom cooperation and management. And if you are not, your customs is not cooperating, you have not yet coded at your single windows what is an AFTA product, so that when it comes, your custom officials will know which one is an AFTA. But if you have not done that, how would the ordinary people within the customs know that this product is an AFTA product? So it must go through this tariff condition. So we need to legislate even the cooperations and management that is part of the agreement that these parties signed. So the potentials are there, but in terms of the implementation to accelerate it, then we need to do retrospection. That should be very, very, very swift. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. And I have Eric. Eric, Mr. Lewis mentioned that AFTA's biggest downfall or biggest derailing factor has been the lack of political will. In your point of view, how well do you think political will can make a difference in accelerating the Africa we want in AFTA?
You know, very technical perspectives coming from Mr. Afo there. And I mean, let me even take you all the way back to when the OAU was established, before it transitioned into the AU.
Yeah.
In fact, the significant difference between the OAU and the AU was the fact that AU now had the powers, right, to be able to intervene in the domestic affairs of countries. And that is what African leaders don't want. And I can tell you that it's even why Dr. Kwame Nkrumah did not succeed in, you know, advancing to a greater level the Pan-African dream. I mean, if you want to get presidents of countries, even surrender their presidencies to one authority, that would be difficult. I mean, with the experience of the African leaders we have, certainly, I'm not sure we're going to have that. So yes, we can throw out a policy out there. They all jump on it, ratify, sign them, be part of the agreement. And as we always do in Africa, such agreements are met with, you know, a lot of pomp and pageantry. But like Mr. Afo mentioned, when it came to the implementation, as we said, I'm not even sure the countries have ratified to be under the agreement, right? So if you have the presidencies or prime ministers of African countries leading the charge, I'm not sure anything can stand in the way. So a lot really rests on them, and I think that if they can, they can, you know, get themselves committed to this policy, then of course we're going to have, you know, a very successful implementation.
One would say maybe some conspiracies are springing up as trying to paint a picture that some of these countries have been held by the leg by some other, in quote, colonial interventions through neocolonialism, are trying to draw them out of this very potential and groundbreaking initiative. Can you bring some fact to bear that yes, in a way we can track some barriers to those areas?
Well, I think it's safe to assume that because Ghana is strongly tied to the Britain, and you take our francophone countries, even their currencies is still, you know, tied to that of France. And it's unimaginable that you take even the building of the headquarters of the African Union, fully funded by the Chinese government. I mean, so even at the topmost echelons of the organization, look at what is happening. So if it's happening to countries that they have the umbilical cord still tied to their colonial masters, because they are benefiting from that, obviously, you wouldn't have a free flow, you know, implementation. So I wouldn't say I have facts to that, but I think it's safe to assume that because they are still tied to their colonial masters.
Mr. Afo, you know, one also very important issue outstanding right now is that some African countries like Namibia, Mozambique, who are heavily relying on tariffs to build their economic revenue, are the ones who stand to lose, because this policy is here to cancel tariffs and non-tariff arrangements, meaning that they won't be able to mobilize revenue like how they used to mobilize. And these are outstanding loopholes that we are trying to find. How do we sort these countries who are heavily relying on their coast to build revenue, to trust in AFTA, and also get their revenue by cancelling or by eliminating these tariffs? How well has the African Union dealt with this outstanding red flags?
You know, it's a good question. The reason was exactly what you said, that due to the tariff regimes, they will lose revenue. In fact, Ghana decided to sign for 10 years. Later, 5 years later, it went to this 10 years category. The AFTA territory realized this challenge, so the African Union tasked the Afro-Asian Bank to be one of the regional banks finance ASEFTA implementation. So they came out of what we call the Adjustment Facility Fund. That fund is pushing for credit purposes. I repeat, this fund should never find its way in the budget efficiencies of governments. And that is where my point is. How will this facility, when it comes, be allocated to the right sectors? Because it's not for budget. It's for supporting credits. It's like credit lines. So to be giving the adjustment facility for credit support to mitigate the revenues that they got. But that will not be enough, because at the end of the day, the purpose is you need to implement what we call the factor production. You need the factors of production at work. Labor capital, if you are not building new factories, building new plants, building new plantations to produce, to export, you are only wasting time. And so I would challenge African Union, the ACTA, and all the financial institutions that are tasked to support this implementation. Then look, it's better they do so than really always allowing foreign interferences through certain countries. I don't think they are not good. But some of them are stated for a long time. They are interested in speed that we hold a lot of trade programs, policy programs, to build factories. So these factories will produce. They were rather interested in the kitchen that you have 3 weeks workshops in Ghana, in Babe, in Rwanda, and what have you. At the end of the day, if you are not producing, you won't get any import and export going in your country for you to even get tariff or a revenue to even get tariffs. And so these are very critical. That was why I started initially by saying that we have policies, but the implementation pathways are different. So these countries, until they are able to release that judgment, they are not to support that adjustment facility fund. But it is now Europeans, Americans who come into this agreement, and I know they're already in, by trying to support NGOs, support private sector, then let them give us the real support by building industries, giving us the technology to build physical factories, we produce, and then add value to our resources, the value chain, so that we can be sustainable. And by saying, look at the resources surrounding all of us. Why do we have to struggle with generating electricity? If you come to Ghana, you know that not have so much sunshine. If you go to Morocco, they have the largest solar panels. Every country should look what the resource of value advantage and build industries, manufacturing plants to produce and export. This is the way that those countries that are going to have shocks for the time can survive. That structure, that's adjustment facility fund should be seen in erecting factories, industries to produce based upon the raw materials that are there by the value chains they can adopt.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. And Eric, you know, Nkrumah was tagged as one over-ambitious figure during the AAU days when he was trying to push for a very immediate unification of the African continent to become a USA of a sort, United States of Africa, which had lots of oppositions from other leaders that even though we wouldn't want to still surrender our power to you and you are being so quick and all that. Today, the African Union is maybe modeling in that steps, trying to bring a common currency. Somewhere June 2019, we were looking at a common currency for the African continent. And in Nigeria, where we held the program, Nigeria had to just blow it away because public debts of some countries were so much. We're looking at a free movement protocol where we can all move in and out freely. He mentioned some other treaties that were coming in. Do you find the AU becoming a little bit inconsiderate about some of the things that they're developing, or they're not touching on the most salient ones in moving the good order? They just want to do everything at once. Is the AU at the moment being overambitious in a haste to unite Africa, or they have to look at one thing at a time?
You know, there's this narrative from the West, and that even sees Africa as a country. And I think that is the same thing that Dr. Kwame Nkrumah had in mind.
Yeah.
And I think that's really going to be difficult, like I indicated earlier. Getting the presidents and prime ministers of African countries politically surrounding their presidencies, that's really going to be difficult. What I find the AU do, and 60 years on, the AU, some think it has failed, some think it hasn't. I'm not too sure which side of the pendulum I swing, but I think that there's a lot more for us to do. And what I find with the AU is that they appear to be measuring in the minors.
Okay.
What we see them do, in fact, moving the continent forward, I think our leaders have to know it's not in the excellency of speeches delivered, the length of meetings attended. All that we see are usually cosmetic window dressing, just like Mr. Afo pointed out. Attending workshops, going for conferences, but what I see is that we are not truly and passionately committed to the continent of Africa. As we sit here today, and I mean, just in case someone gets to watch this show 10 years from now, that today here is 25th May 2023, Africa hosts more than 50% of the world's resources. And as the second most populous and second most largest continent on the face of the earth, we account for just 3% of world trade. I mean, how incredible. How incredible that the most largest, the most populous continent account for just 3%. You know, previously you could talk about maybe some unfair treatment at the world level, but now we have one of our own, Ngozi there, and so I'm not sure we're going to have a lot of unfair treatments coming.
Are we seeing signs of fair trade? That's far, having hair over there as well sometimes.
Well, I'm not suggesting that she should bend the rules for Africa, but at least having her there, I'm sure she can ensure that some fair treatments are meted, you know, onto the continent of Africa. You asked that, do I think whether Africa is speeding up the process unnecessarily
or we're not
too much?
Paying attention to one important thing.
I don't even think we are doing any of that. What I see us doing is just jumping on conferences. We just want to do something to show that, okay, we are also in the serious business of developing our continent. Like I mentioned, no serious continent will, you know, take funding from another country. Think about it, that the building, the headquarters of the African Union, which we are celebrating today, was entirely funded by China. And I think similar thing happened to ECOWAS. We will continue to have our president, you know, tout and make claims of moving our countries beyond aid, but we will continue to see them globetrotting, asking for aid everywhere. So for me, I think it's just, you know, activities. We are not really committed to the continent, and that's what purely I personally experience.
We'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk more about Africa's performance towards accelerating the African Continental Free Trade Area, and basically some of the missing pieces that we have to bring to bear. Just stay with us and get your comments ready. We'll read them when we come back.
The land is good, the land is fine. Gold we have, diamonds we mine. Yet we fight, we cover it all in blood. Tell me why we wallow in the mud. Africa, 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 yeah. Mama Africa, we cry for peace. Africa. The land is good, the land is fine. Gold we have, diamonds we mine. Yet we fight, we cover it all in blood. Tell me why we wallow in the mud. we cry for peace. Africa, 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 yeah. Mama Africa, we cry for peace. Africa, 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 yeah. Mama Africa, we cry for peace. Africa, 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 yeah. Mama Africa, we cry for peace. Africa, Nisambuka tigi kayora, Nisambuka tigi kayora, Nisambuka tigi kayora. Tell me why you fight. Tell me why we fight.
I'm glad to welcome you back on the African Union Day show on AAU TV, and it's becoming more interesting, more reflective of the time we're in. And let me just take a short while to read out your comment before I'll continue with my discussion. That is from Charles Williams Zulu. Says, it's really time for Africa to unite in reality. And I will emphasize reality. The West enjoys if we get divided as Africa. As youths, let's not allow to be used as tools of war, tools of division, tools of violence by politicians, and tools of all bad vices and activities. Let's refuse to be called future leaders, or let's be called future leaders. We are present leaders. Actually, he says that let's refuse to be called future leaders. We are present leaders. Thank you for that, Charles. Harry says that leaders need to rethink about how we became free states and development projects previously as compared to present projects. Are they really advancing science and technology education, good health delivery? Let's think reinventing or reorienting the way we apply our knowledge in Africa. Thank you very much, Hamidu. This is from Ivan Wambet. Says that it's to Mr. Lewis. Say, Mr. Lewis, thank you for your enlightenment on this policy, for which not many of us are aware of. It is a good policy, however, the implementation strategies to ensure the public knows and embraces it is a challenge. Well, I agree. Nelson's and Jenny says that after it's a pipe dream, we have failed to implement simple protocols such as Yamoussoukro Declaration, free movement of persons, access. The political will to implement the AFTA, remove visas restrictions for Africans by African countries first, then look at AFTA. That's from Nelson. I'll take this last one from Daniel. Says documentaries and discussions quite informative and inspiring. Happy African Union Day. So nice people, there we are. We're still on. If you have any comments, bring it on board. We're taking the last track of discussions right here, and we're looking at the end game. Basically, I'll start with you, Eric. Basically, what are some of the youth initiatives that are presently rising up in African countries that you think that if AFTA was on its feet today, it would have been a phenomenal a wonder in building Africa's dream?
Thank you, Ajiman. Before I come to that, you know, when I was in the University of Ghana, a lecturer told us a story of when the Lord was creating the earth.
Yeah.
and had apportioned the continents.
Interesting.
An angel stood there and asked, "Why, Lord, are you, endowing Africa with so much resources?" You know the response of God? Don't worry, I can give them everything. But you look at the people I'll give them.
That's
Do you
deep.
get it?
That's deep.
So we can have everything, like I indicated earlier. We host more than 50% of the world's resources, which on paper should make us the richest.
Yeah.
But in practice, we are the poorest. I mean, how do you reconcile these seemingly reconcilable realities? That we are the richest on paper and that in practice we are the poorest. You take the AFTA that we are discussing. The headquarters of AFTA is based here in Ghana.
Sure.
But you take your cameras and hit the streets of Accra and ask randomly, how many people, even the youth, know about the AFCFTA? How many of us do? So I think that a lot more education needs to be pushed to the youth.
Yeah.
And because you can't take advantage of what you don't even know in the first place.
Yeah.
Another thing that I would want to touch on, and before I come to your question, I think it's that it's really going to be difficult for us to implement the AFCFTA. Yes, it's really going to be difficult.
That's quite shocking.
Because beyond the education, there's another element at play. That is the African's taste for foreign goods.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Right here in Ghana, we've seen local producers and manufacturers produce goods locally, and then afterward, you see a label of made in China on it. What is the mindset that we are operating with?
I can commend Nigeria for that 100%.
Such inferiority, complex mindset.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we as Africans, if we are to move forward, we have to probably go by what Robert Nesta Marley, Bob Marley said, that we have to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery.
Yeah.
Because none but ourselves can free our mind.
Sure.
So now to your question, in relation to the youth,
Yeah.
given that we have the African population, largely youthful, I think that if anything, we stand to benefit a lot. But like I mentioned, there needs to be a lot of education pushed to the youth. Yeah. Here in Ghana, in the earliest, in the first session, we have some of my brothers, touching on them. And I think that whether out of unemployment or passion, because that's the case in Africa, I think we would want to have a lot more youth getting into entrepreneurship, whether out of passion or out of unemployment. And I think that with the opening of the African market, they stand to benefit not just from the Ghanaian market, but all the markets in Africa. So I think that one thing I would advise the youth to do is to get something started, and we stand the chance to benefit from the entire African continent.
Don't give up, youth. Don't give up. To Mr. Lewis, sir, you have been engaging the private sector for some time now. I've been following your progress. Can you say that as at now, we have got a very complete or a much more unified understanding and willingness from the private sector across the continent towards an African continental free trade area? Is the green light so strong from that side?
No.
That's a shocking one.
The reason is no, because within the agreement we have what we call information, and it's part of what we call the DIAT. A lot of people, I've heard and seen a lot of programs and lectures and things going around after, but I think that sometimes my problem is within the people who are the resource persons. Some really don't really situate the understanding of it, let alone to give to the people. Because you need to understand very well this agreement and what it's really the benefit. Secondly, under trade information, the party state are supposed to employ every resources to make sure that the private sector, CSOs, everyone understands and then works with it. Again, we have left it to just the tertiary way of information, to the radio, TV, and that's it. No. Like one pin mother suggested, if it's in Ghana, go with this this van to every village, every town.
Yeah, the com service.
The information files. Take your time, explain to them. Adopt improvised means of communicating this agreement because it's not going anywhere now. Again, the private sector only understand that there's an agreement, they have competitive, but I've realized over the years, the past 3 years of trading that most of them don't know product identification. What am I to identify the produce? 2, they've not done export analysis of the country they are trading with. You want to export to a country, you don't know what they need. I did a complete survey, a study, employee population upon all the export and import of countries of Africa, so that you know that I'm going to Malawi to produce what they need. That is very key. But that should be start with what the market intelligence. What are you exporting? Do they need? They need it. What are you importing? Do you if I want to import something at the tariff reduction, I should know the country from which I'm importing that.
Yeah.
So that information, we are not there yet. We are not there yet. But we need to speed it up. And that involves not only technical experts, but these are basic understanding of how a product should be thought about. And finally, until the product gets to the consumer,
yeah,
I'm not saying that you have finished with export. We do so many export programs for the people here at level, but we must end up helping them to register the products, get standardization for the concentration for the product, get market for the people, and until you know that Nigeria or Tanzania is consuming this product or services, then we can say that yes, the information has trickled down to the benefits. So we have a long way to go. Though we are doing well, we have a long way.
Oh, it's indeed a very long way to go, but we're also trying to wrap up here. We can't actually end the road. We hope that we do that one day. From your expertise point of view, if you were to sound one aspiration in the next decade, what should have been achieved with AFTA? With all your dreams and all your hopes and toils, what would that be, sir?
Right now, we need to take serious into the services and the AFTA. We focus so much on the goods. The services, according to the World Bank, forms about 50% of our GDP. And the services, we have 12 areas: ICT, transport, education, sports. You don't know that sports is a part. Sports, creative, distribution, health, tourism, financial services, professional, all this. Look, in all that I've mentioned, you just think carefully. If we are going to get employment for our youth, these 12 sectors which have been liberalized and after 5 have been done, but left in the 7. It's a whole world on its own.
Yeah.
Every person can identify a profession, a trade, a vocation, a product to be able to implement or export or import.
Yeah.
So the services is my advice. You must find what services, and after that you can trade and build up on it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that is where the gate is open for all participants. If you want to add your word, your contribution or comment, please raise your hands up. You raise your hands up on Zoom, and then we'll give you minutes, some few seconds to just share your success thoughts or the discussion so far before we wrap it up right over here. So if you are on Zoom and then you want to share your view, you haven't spoken or you haven't said anything from the beginning, just let's see your hand up, and then we just give you a chance to speak within some few seconds, so we can just move to the next one and then wrap it up. So if you have any comment, you can just do that in the next 1 minute. Anyone on Zoom to help, to just want to say a word or two. Any hands? Yeah. Okay. Well, while we wait for the hands, we can just do some comments that we've gotten on Zoom. We've had a couple of comments. This is coming from Philip Wamawa,
He says that let's be realistic. Expecting factories and industries to sprout in every corner of our continent at the same time is not possible. Okay, even when the Asian tigers did not all come up at the same time, let us identify growth centers critical to our vision in the east, west, south, and north. Then we can model our growth around this center. So thank you very much, Philip, for your comments as well. Is there any other person on Zoom with a comment? Whilst we wait for these comments to come in, where you raise your hands, let me go to Eric. Eric, you represent the youth. If you had any aspiration for the next 10 years about the encircling power of AFTA in improving the lives of young people, women, and children, what would be the aspiration?
Well, so I think that through the implementation and even to get to the end of the AFCFTA, I'd want to see generally a deepened taste for African goods.
Yeah.
Because of what Essence is saying, Nigeria to export toothpick, for example, to Ghana, if Ghana is interested in taking the same from China. I think that generally it's one thing that I would want to see at the end, or even through the implementation of the AFCFTA. And like I mentioned earlier, because we have the youth forming the majority of population here in Africa, and we have, should I say most of them, about half of them unemployed, I would want to see the AFCFTA open up the African market, and even through and by the time we get to the end of its implementation, we would have a lot more of the youth, if not all, employed.
Thank you very much. And at this juncture, if you are online and you are from the East, West, Central, or North Africa, you have got a comment that you want to share as we get to the very last part of this discussion, you can bring it in and we will just hear from you and then hear what you have to say. What has been your take so far as a participant on this program? We can hear from you. Ivan, you've been a very core contributor from the beginning. Pardon me if I put you on the spot. What has been your take so far? I've read a couple of comments from you, but I want to hear from your own mouth what you've got to say, Ivan.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to have something to say.
Yeah.
Well, in regards to, first and foremost, all protocol observed, I wish to thank you so much for this platform that has enabled us.
Can you put your camera on, please, Nelson? So as we wait for Nelson, Adebayo, let's hear from you, sir. You can put your camera on and talk to us. Okay, so Nelson is on. Okay, so Nelson, let's hear from you. What has been your take so far?
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear very well. We're good.
Thank you very much. It's been a great discussion. So I think it's a very good initiative for the Association of African Universities to come up with a platform for youth to discuss the future of Africa advantage. I say that 2063 that will come to. But like I've been saying all along, I think the current group of leaders that we have at the moment in Africa is not willing to live by founding fathers, likes of Kwame Nkrumah, Robert Mugabe, Julius Nyerere, the vision that they had for Africa in 1963 when the AAU was formed. I think we've lost the trajectory as a continent. And I think we need a new group of leaders that really believe in the I can say maybe the whole African continent, the whole citizen of Africa benefiting from whatever we are
Sure.
So our own goods sell to ourselves, to ourselves with each other. So I think if the will is there, we can get a
Splendid.
very possible.
Splendid. Thank you, Nelson. So, my brother, Adebayo Gunkoya, who is currently where you are, let's hear from you. What have you got to say per your participation?
It's been an amazing competition so far. I love the fact that most of us have been very, very pragmatic about the discussion. And first of all, thank you for this opportunity, and thanks to the institution. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you. I think you have to stabilize your camera.
Okay. How is it now?
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
So I could understand that people are pessimistic about AFCFTA. I understand. Africa has not been, let me say, known for doing great things. And yeah, in the recent course of history, and what I mean by recent course of history, I think they did great about that. That was a great continent until civilization was rudely interrupted by world wars of rudely interrupted by the colonialists. But since we all started getting surface independence, because I do not believe that there are independent countries in Africa, I call it surface independence. Since we all started getting that from 1960s up till now, I do not think collectively done significant things. But let us look beyond the government. Government does not really do great things. Government only creates environmental. Private sector are just this adjustments. The largest petrochemical refineries in the world was commissioned in Nigeria. That was the Dangote refinery in Nigeria. And I feel such events are just a part of a start for kind of Africa that for that event, I know that many oil countries like Ghana and the likes, even Nigeria itself, is supplying oil from abroad and exporting and it has imported refining and this kind of stabilize the cost of these
Great.
products in their countries.
Yeah, I can hear you. We have some few minutes, so you can just wrap up for us, okay?
It's quite very expensive for the common person. For instance, in Ghana, we've seen price of oil in the last couple of months go up to the industry. But with this introduction of Dangote refinery, I'm sure that Ghana, whoever Ghana is dealing with, oil producing organizations in Ghana, can at least do business with another private sector in Nigeria. So for me, I understand the pessimism about the CFT and all that, but also, critically look at some of the decisions or some of the steps taken so far, especially how some of the key players in the private sector have embraced this opportunity, and think we are heading towards the right place. Are we where we should be?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Adebayo, for your comments. And thank you very much, everyone, for your participation and comment as well. We'll now take one last then, which is a survey that has been looming from your comment. That has there been any survey concerning people's views and knowledge about AfCFTA? So I have with me my colleague Jemima Dadam-Doche to do the honors to present a survey that was conducted a while ago about the knowledge strength of African young people about the African continental free trade area. Jemima, let's go.
Yeah, so as part of our celebration today, we conducted a survey, and I would give an interpretation to what we had. to what we had, yes, I believe the charts can be projected for us if possible. So first of all, I'll start from the gender we worked with. So from the survey, based on the survey that we did, it is observed that we had a lot of...
Before you continue, how many people participated in the survey?
So overall, we had 45 people.
45 participants?
Yeah,
okay.
45 participants. And then based on the participants, grouping them in male and female, we realized that we had a lot of males, responding to the survey with about 63.6%. And with females, we had 36.4%. So from this, we saw that the males were dominating in the survey. And then from the occupation, we worked with some students and then workers. And then based on what we gathered, we realized that a lot of our participants were workers with about 79.5%. And even as they are working, under the workers, we had CEOs, lecturers, and some consultants. And from, the students we also dealt with, or some of the students who filled our survey, were up to 20.5%. Yes. So with the age range, we dealt with 18 to 25, and also 26 to 30, and then 31 to 41, and then 42 and above. And from what we gathered, we realized that between the ages of 18 and 25, we had 13.6% of the participants. And between 26 to 30, we also had 22.7% of the respondents. Showing slightly higher representations. And between the ages of 31 to 41, I would say we had a lot of people in that category with about 25.0%. And then the largest of it all, I would say, are the people, So the largest of it all, I would say, are the people between the ages of 42 and above. We saw that most of the respondents of our surveys are in that category. And then we also found out the socioeconomic status of our respondents. And then we categorized them into low, average, and high. And we realized that 11.6% of our participants classify themselves as low socioeconomic status. Yes, and then 79.1%, I would say, were considered as average, or saw themselves as average in the average socioeconomic status. And then 9.3 as or identify themselves in the high socioeconomic status. So we realized that most of our participants were in the average socioeconomic status. And then working with our educational background from our respondents, we realized that according to the chart that we have, is evidence that 100% of our respondents or of our participants had their highest educational level at the tertiary education. So that means even in the tertiary education, we had degrees such as the master's degree, the doctorates, the PhDs, and then all that. So we realized that all of them were had their education at the tertiary education.
So you can take us to the main aspect.
So
the high and lows.
We are starting here. The knowledge on after. So from the survey, we realized that a lot of our respondents knew, or let me say, were aware of after, saying that the respondents that said they were aware of it was 90.7%. Yes, they agreed that they had, or they were aware of what after was all about. And however, I would say just 7%, indicated that they were not aware of after. And then 2.3% of our respondents responded maybe, suggesting that maybe they are uncertain about the information or the knowledge they had about after. So moving on, we also spoke about AFTA's capability to enhance industrialization in the line with Agenda 2063. And from the chart that we have here, we realized that majority of our respondents, making 38.7%, strongly agree that yes, it's true that AFTA will help enhance industrialization in line with Agenda 2063, and additional 50% agree. So the first people strongly agree, and then the 50% agree that AFTA has the potential to enhance industrialization in Africa according to Agenda 2063. I would say from the chart here, 7.5% disagreed, while a few of the respondents remain neutral. They really didn't know the solution or the answer to that.
Sure. I think more importantly, those who say they're strongly agreeing and then strongly disagreeing are very capital and material to the discussion. Just do a hit or not for us.
Yes. Okay. So let me move to the next one. So AFTA's potential to drive intra-African trade. So with this one, to realize that a lot of people were strongly agreeing and agreeing. So with those who agreed, they are 31.8%, and those who strongly agreed are 31.8%, and those who agreed are 61.4%. That means we had a lot of people agreeing to the fact that AFTA has the potential to drive into who disagreed to that fact.
Great.
So moving on, we spoke about AFTA's potential to impact small and medium enterprises. Yes. So a combined, 82.3% of the respondents either strongly agreed or disagreed.
Yes.
So categorizing that, those who strongly agreed were 35.6%.
Sure.
Yes, and then those who agreed were 46.7%. So that means from the survey, a lot of people really agreed to the fact that AFTA has the potential to impact small and medium enterprises. So 11.1% of our respondents remain neutral, and then 6.6% remain they disagreed to that fact. Yes. And then moving on, we spoke about the promotion of women and youth empowerment during
AFTA's ability to promote women.
Yes, women and youth empowerment.
Interesting.
And this one is very interesting. So the data here reveals that 34.1% of our participants agreed with a statement, while strongly agreed with a statement. That is 34.1%, and then 50% agreed. So it's like people really agree, but
not strongly agree.
Yeah, not the strong.
You be cautious.
You don't want to commit yourself. Exactly. And then this indicates that a combined total of 84.1% of the respondents expressed a positive outlook on AFTA's potential to empower our youth and also women in Africa. But furthermore, I would say that 15.9% of the statement, notably no response or strongly disagreed with the assertion that AFTA could serve as a means to promote women and then the youth. And I'll come to...
Just hit us on one last item, which is very significant.
Yes, so the AFTA's capability to contribute to achieving the 2030 agenda.
I think that is very, very material in there.
But funny enough, we still have somehow like the same as responses, seeing that a lot of people agree. A lot of people with about 43.2% of our respondents agreed, and then 31.8% strongly agreed. So people really agree, but not strongly. And then we had 18.2% of our respondents giving a neutral response, and then 6.8% disagreeing to the survey. So from all that we have now, we realize that a lot of people, or a lot of the respondents that we call here, do agree with AFTA's potential in the various segments that we spoke to them about. But as to if they strongly agree, that one, I feel we didn't get a lot of response from that. The response was mainly mainly agreeing to the fact that AFTA is capable. So this is the end of the survey that we had as part of our program.
Thank you very much, Maima, for the very, very succinct presentation. And also, thank you very much for staying with us. And let me just do this very last bit of it to say the happy birthday to you, Madame Doris Amwa.
It's your birthday. I mean, it's so delightful to have your birthday on an African Union Day. Not only you, we also have Adebayo Gonkoya, a comrade himself, who has served very well. Is also celebrating his birthday on this very August occasion. So a good one to you is I'll call it Happy Continental Birthday to you for being born on this very special day and also being part and parcel of the African story. At this very moment, I want to say a big thank you to you all. First of all, to the Association of African Universities, a great institution, an umbrella body holding together the AAU TV. And also to you on Zoom, every one of you. I can't mention you all, but it's been a great time with you. Keep it as company on this program. It would have been easy. It wouldn't have been. Yeah, it wouldn't have been delightful without you. So it's so good to have you all. So just put on your cameras at this moment for us to take a very historic and memorable photograph of you being part of this very historic and August occasion on the 25th of May 2023. So put your cameras on. Let's take a very last final group photograph together. It goes into our archives as being part of this very historic event. And thank you very much to every one of you, to the AAU TV, the team. It's a very big team right here, and I hope that every one of you will have the chance to experience the theme that we have here at the AAU technical team. Thank you very much for your efforts in putting this very beautiful program together. The hosts and producers, you've been so marvelous. The coordinators, you've been so great. And our guests as well, Mr. Louis Yawafo and also Eric Najiman. Thank you very much also to Hayford and Ebenezer for your time and contribution. It's been insightful thus far. I would want us to take a group photograph. So if you are on Zoom at the moment, please put your camera on and let's have the biggest smiles. Even though you may not have heard what you want to hear, we're still proud to be Africans, aren't we? So put on a big smile and let's take a group photograph at the moment now. So we close up. It should be the biggest smile.